Welcome to part 2 of episode 6. Writers aren't always right. So, this is the part 2 of the article by Jerry Jenkins, How to Write a Novel, a 12-Step Guide. So, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I would recommend that you go look at part 1 first and before you get into part 2. Okay, so part 2 is going to go through the last half, the second half, yes, of the second set of 6 steps. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. So there's 12 steps, so I separated into the first 6 steps and the second 6 steps. So we're going to get right into this. So, well, let's review. Let's review for a second. Step 1 was to nail down a winning story idea. Step 2 was determine whether you're an outliner or a pantser. Step 3 was to create an unforgettable main character. Although I feel unforgettable was kind of subjective, but okay. Step 4, expand your idea into a plot. Step 5 is research. And step 6 is choose your voice and point of view. Now, step 6 being choosing your point of view, I feel like point of view is you think about that when you're establishing the character. So I don't know why I've seen other writing advice articles saying to figure out your point of view later down the line. I don't know why that is. I might have to look into that. Look into writing advice articles specifically about point of view, maybe they would say something. So anyway, we're going into step 7, which is begin in medias res. Look, I forgot that this was here, so I forgot to look up how to say it. Okay, so let us read. You must grab your reader by the throat on page 1. That doesn't necessarily mean bullets flying or a high-speed chase, though that might work for a thriller. It means avoiding too much scene setting and description, and rather getting to the good stuff, the guts of the story. Les Edgerton, a gritty writer who writes big boy novels, don't say I didn't warn you, says beginning writers worry too much about explaining all the backstory to the reader first. He's saying, in essence, get on with it and trust your reader to deduce what's going on. The goal of every sentence, in fact, of every word, is to compel the reader to read the text. Okay, so is there more? There is no more. Okay, so step 7 is very short. Now, he's talking about the hook of the story, basically. What do you do for the hook? Where in the story do you start the story, essentially? That is something that I have also been trying to figure out is what is the best way. What is the best way, in a sense, what is the best way for me? And can I figure out something in general? Like in general, is there something, some type of style of hook, some type of recipe for writers to follow when writing a hook? Now, you know that he's not talking about, I hope he's not talking about doing this in the first draft. In the first draft, start wherever the heck you want to start your story. That will get you going. Don't worry about it being some ultimate, spectacular, reader grabbing, grab the reader by the throat type of beginning when you're writing the first draft. For the first draft, you don't want to think about anything. Okay, you just want to write. What you want to do is in the editing, you would want to start figuring out where you want to start the story. And that's when maybe you would apply this step. I wouldn't think you would do this in the first draft. I think that's not such a good idea to do. It will give you writer's block. You might feel like you're not good enough or something. You might feel like, oh no, I can't be like those great writers out there. But the thing is, the great writers, by the time we see the great writers' work, it has been edited thousands and thousands of times. And so we're seeing the finished product. We can't compare our first draft to the finished product. We can compare our first draft to their first draft, but they're not going to show their first draft, right? I mean, I haven't seen any traditionally published authors reveal their first draft. Is it out there? That might be something to look up. Like, do they talk about their first draft? I feel like they should. I mean, especially if they want to inspire other people to write stories, they should show their first draft, what it looks like. I would think that would be a good idea to do if you're an influential author. So, he mentions Jerry Jenkins. By the way, I might say Jerry Jenkins in this video a lot because I just like saying his name. It's just so fun to say for some reason. So, Jerry Jenkins mentions this writer, this gritty writer who writes big boy novels. Don't say I didn't warn you. This is what he's saying. Don't say I didn't warn you. I don't know who Les Egerton. Maybe it's Egerton. It's not Egerton. It's Egerton. Okay. Says that beginning writers worry too much about explaining all the backstory to the reader first. Okay, so, in the first draft, you can do all the explaining that you want. You can explain to your heart's desire, okay? You can do that in your first draft. It's during editing that you'd probably want to figure out how to weave the backstory into the book. How to weave it into the plot. So, I can give an example from my own writing where I just did backstory for like 7 chapters. So this was the first, when did I start writing this? Gosh, it was a long time ago. It was a long, long time ago. When was that? I know I was still writing it in 2011. This was a pretty old story. This was my first long story. I had been writing flash fiction and short stories and poetry. And then I thought I'm going to tackle on a lengthy novel. And in my mind, lengthy meant, the longest novel I had written that I first wrote was 40,000 words. And that's actually not a novel size. I thought it was at the time. But that story was about 7 to 10 chapters of backstory, basically. The actual story didn't start until like the middle of the book, which wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. It was terrible. It's so cringy. I can't even read it today. It's not going to see the light of day, let me tell you. I'm not even going to tell you about the actual story. But what I can say is that it was just a bunch of character backstory, the history and childhood and everything. And then finally in the middle of the book, it's like, okay, we're going on an adventure quest thing. And then they venture and then they arrive at the location. And that's how the first book ends. It's not very exciting. It's not very exciting. But it was my first story and it really taught me, that was the first story that I actually started editing and stuff like that. I had no idea. I really had no idea what I was doing and all that. I was still learning. And I thought I had to explain everything. I forgot to trust the reader. If you're a writer and you read books, you know what's going on, right? So you can imagine people like you reading your story. You don't have to keep explaining things. You can leave some things to interpretation. And if it seems like if you get someone else to read it and it seems like they're not getting it, then maybe you can explain a little bit more. But as they say, whoever they are, less is more. So you would leave a lot of it up to the reader. Trust the reader is smart, okay? Trust the reader is smart. A lot of people say just trust the reader, but I would like to add is smart at the end, because, and also readers really remember things. They really do remember things. So I was reading this book. What was it? Oh, yes. Actually, I thought of a different book, but I was reading this book, and it's by, it may be a surprise, but Diana Wynne Jones. And what was it called? It was something about, not time travel, but it was some part realm or something that deals with time. And I don't know, are they immortal? Anyway, there was this character, okay? And Diana Wynne Jones, for some reason, thought that every time she introduced this character, she had to say that he had a single pigtail, okay? Every single time this character came in the picture, there was at least one scene where he is tugging at his single pigtail. He's chewing on his single pigtail. He's whipping his single pigtail back. I don't know. There was just, okay, he has a single pigtail. I know it already. Just stop mentioning it. It starts getting obvious and kind of just ridiculous. So trust your reader, really. They remember things, really. So, So in my own writing, I started to try to trust the reader. So I don't need to explain all this backstory here. I just need to get into it. Just get into it. Just get into the story and just weave things in. And yeah. Anyway, we're sort of going off on a little bit of a tangent here. But I think giving this step 7 here into a how to write a novel, a 12-step guide article is a little bit, I don't know, because this might be something you would think about in the editing and not in the first draft. I wouldn't advise people, anybody, to try to come up with an amazing hook for their first draft. Don't do that. You're going to be stuck in chapter 1 for eternity if you do that. Okay. And he's also mentioning the goal of every sentence, in fact of every word, is to compel the reader to read the next. Don't worry about that in the first draft. Worry about that in the editing, okay? So I think he should have mentioned that here, that in the editing stage, you can start in the midst of things, okay? When you start your first draft, you can start in the midst of things. You can start in the middle of action. But don't worry about the details. Like every sentence matters, every word matters. Don't stress about that. Otherwise, you'll be stuck on the first chapter for eternity, okay? I've been there. I know, okay? I've been not in the first draft. It was a rewrite, but it's kind of like a first draft because it's a rewrite. But I've been there. So I don't. Okay. So, step 8. Let's read on. Engage the theater of the reader's mind. You know, when I first saw this step 8, just the title of the step, it's like, what? Theater of the reader's mind. Huh. That's an interesting way of putting it. And then I found this picture, this stock photo. If you look at the screen right now, you can see some people looking up at some light. And I thought, this is either a movie theater or these people are being abducted by aliens while sitting down and enjoying popcorn. Anyway, that was a tangent. So let's move on and read. Don't moviegoers often say they like the book better? The reason is obvious. Even with all its high-tech computer-generated imagery, Hollywood cannot compete with the theater of the reader's mind. The image our mind's eye evokes are far more, the images. Let me reread that. The images our mind's eye evokes are far more imaginative and dramatic than anything Hollywood can produce. Your job as a writer is not to make readers imagine things as you see them, but to trigger the theaters of their minds. Give them just enough to engage their mental projectors. That's where the magic happens. Okay. And he gives for more visit my post on things down at the bottom. Is there any more after this? Nope, there is no more. Okay. Step 8 is also very short. Theater of the reader's mind. That's a very interesting way to put it, and I can't exactly imagine what I'm supposed to imagine. Is he talking about, why is this a step? This sounds like I might have bumped my mic again. This sounds like an advice, not a step. Look, I know that steps, how-to articles get lots of traction. That's how people attract people to their blogs or websites, because everybody likes a list. Everybody likes a list, and so they will make a list for people. I used to have a blog. No, actually, I shouldn't say used to, because I still do. It's still kind of sort of active. I do still have a blog. It's called World Problems and Randomness. I know. What a title, huh? That was back in the day. It's been like, 10 years since I made that blog? Anyway, I found out that people like lists. So I decided I'm going to make a bunch of list articles. And one list article was, it was a joke article. It was something like, what was it titled? 5 golden answers for every question, or something like that. And basically, I came up with the 5 golden answers for any question that anybody can ever ask you. And that one got so much attention. Surprisingly, for me. It's not like a lot of attention for like going viral or anything. Nothing like that. I've never gone viral in my life. But it got a lot of attention. So that tells you people love lists. Did he make an advice article but just call it steps and just I do like Jerry Jenkins. He seems like a nice kind of guy. I found him on YouTube first, so I didn't know that he had a website before I found him on YouTube. Jerry B. Jenkins on YouTube. I'm subscribed. I think. Yeah. So, this is a step. This sounds like a piece of, just sounds like advice. Okay, why would you have this as a step? I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't want to be so mean, but I feel really disappointed that this is a step. I feel really disappointed that suddenly this 12-step guide isn't a 12-step guide. It's just 12 pieces of advice, it feels like to me. It was going so well. I remember part 1. It was like, There's some things like, I don't know, but he did mention something that was really good, was that this is the stuff that worked for me. Why don't you see if it'll work for you? See, that's something that not a lot of writing articles say. So Not sure. You know, it's good to write descriptive stuff and engage the reader. Be descriptive to show some kind of image. Is he also talking about show don't tell here? He might be. I'm not actually sure. Why is this a step? Why is this a step? What? Why? This is not a step. I am positive. This is not a step. How is this a step? Why would you do this as a step? And also, let me just reiterate for like the billionth time in all these step-based writing advice articles that step implies that it ends there. It ends like you start step 8 and you end step 8 and you don't do it again unless they mention that you should do it again. Repeat step 8, you know. Step implies a process. Right. Writers, come on, we can do better. Come on. Okay, step 9. Let's hope this is actually a step. Intensify your main character's problems. You know, I'm starting to feel like this is not a step either. Why couldn't have you just ended it with the first 6 steps? Like, that was fine. That was like how to start a novel, right? That was fine enough. It's after that. Do you have to have 12? You can have 6. I've seen 5-step things. List of 5 things. 5 is enough. Even 4, even 3. People like lists, okay, of anything. If you really want to do that, like that. I feel like there's even no point reading on, but I'm going to read on. Okay. I need coffee. Are you drinking something? Let me know in the comments what you are drinking now, what you are eating now. If you're not drinking or eating anything, tell me your favorite beverage. Okay. You've grabbed your reader with a riveting opener and plunged. I have so much trouble saying plunged. Plunged? I don't know why. And plunged your hero into terrible trouble. Now, everything he does to get out of that terrible trouble must make it progressively worse. Do not give him a break. Too many amateurs render their hero's life too easy. They give a private eye a nice car, a great weapon, a beautiful girlfriend, an upscale apartment, a fancy office, and a rich client. Rather pull out from under him anything that makes his life easy. Have his car break down, his weapon get stolen, his girlfriend leave, his landlord victim, his office burn, and his client go broke. Now thrust him into a dangerous case. Conflict is the engine of fiction. Oh, I like that. Conflict is the engine of fiction. That is something that I like, that sentence right there. And he has some articles on conflict. His trouble should escalate logically with his every successive attempt to fix it. You can hint that he's growing, developing, changing, getting stronger, and adding more to his skill set through his trials. But his trouble should become increasingly terrible until you... Okay. Until you... ... Okay. No, this is not a step again. This is just writing advice. This is just advice. This is just plain old advice. Just make an advice article. Why does it have to be steps? You can say 12 pieces of advice that every writer should think about. That will be helpful. Or something like that. You don't have to say steps, because steps implies a process with a beginning and an end. But he did say, okay, let's ignore for a moment that this is a step. He did say terrible trouble. And now there's something familiar about this terrible trouble. I feel like I've heard it before. Was it in another article? Or was it in Jerry Jenkins' first 6 steps? No, I'm going to go find it. The screen is going to flip around. I'm going to go find it. Let's see. Does he talk about terrible trouble? Somewhere. Oh, yes. Is this where he talks about it? Step 1. Does he talk about terrible? I feel like he mentioned it, or somebody mentioned it, terrible trouble. Let's see. I am flipping through the previous screens. The previous ones. Distinct names. Forgettable character. Somebody mentioned terrible trouble, because that sounds very familiar to me. Talking about all this research and choosing a point of view. Well, I guess it's not him, but I think maybe it's the I think it was the previous article. Who was that? Oh, I've looked at so many articles. But somebody mentioned terrible trouble, and I was like, terrible trouble? What is that? Anyway, we're moving on. Sorry about that. I really thought Jerry Jenkins mentioned terrible trouble, but I think it was somebody else. Interesting. Interesting that they're saying similar things. Which, you would imagine that people who give writing advice would say similar things. You would hope that they would. You would hope that they say the exact same thing, but they want to be different. They want to stand out. So they say different things. Which is better? That's something to think about. Anyway, talking about a hero's life, giving him conflict and problems and terrible troubles and things like that. Well, I think it really depends on what kind of story you're writing. Also, you can give a private eye a nice car, a great weapon, a beautiful boyfriend too if you wanted to. Doesn't matter, whoever you're writing, whatever you're doing. I don't have much to say about this because this is just advice. So, the only thing I will say is that I like the phrase conflict is the engine of fiction. And there is something linked here that I might look at a later time and react to that. Who knows? If you want to see that, let me know. If you want to see me going through, like, a lot of these writing advice articles have, like, links to other more specific types of writing advice for, like, specific things. More specific things like show, don't tell, or unforgettable characters, or terrible trouble. I don't know if there was one for terrible trouble, actually. Oh, somebody mentioned terrible trouble. Now it's really bothering me. Who mentioned it? I think it was the previous writing advice article. Gosh, what was that? Was that Reedsy? No, I don't think so. Was it Reedsy? Anyway, I've looked at so many, but yeah. Anyway, I don't have much to say about this. This is just advice. It's not a step. We're moving on. So, step 10. Make his predicament appear hopeless. Writing coaches have various labels for this crucial plot point. This crucial plot point. Novelist Angela Hunt refers to this as the bleakest moment. It's where even you wonder how you're going to write your way out of this. The once reprobate lover who has become a changed man and a loving fiancé suddenly falls off the wagon the night before the wedding. Caught red-handed doing drugs and drinking with another woman, he sees his true love storm off, vowing to never speak to him again. Imagine the nadir What the heck is that? The low point, the bleakest moment for your lead character. Your ability to mine this can make or break you as a novelist. I don't know if it's that dramatic. Make or break you as a novelist. I don't know, is that dramatic? But anyway. This is not easy, believe me. You'll be tempted to give your protagonist a break, invent an escape, or inject a miracle. Don't you dare. The bleakest moment forces your hero to take action, to use every new muscle and technique gained from facing a book full of obstacles to prove that things only appeared beyond repair. The more hopeless the situation, the more powerful your climax and ending will be. Okay, this is another piece of advice. It is no longer a step. Okay, we're not doing steps anymore. J.R. Jenkins is not doing steps anymore. Okay, we see you. I see you. I see you. I'm not fooled. Don't be fooled. These are not steps anymore. Okay. So, what the heck is nadir? Is that like a Latin word for low point? Bleakest moment? What is that? Never seen that before. It looks like a word that if you read it backwards, that it's another word. But ridan is not a word either. So I don't know what it is. Anyway, I'm not a Latin literary person, so I have no idea. No idea. No idea. Okay. Okay, so the bleakest moment. My current rewrite story is dark. It's close to dark fantasy. I mean, it's not always completely dark, but it's it's close to a dark fantasy novel. So the bleakest moment isn't really particularly there. I would say there is a hopeless moment. Where it seems like there is no way that they can move forward. There's no like one bleakest moment. It's sort of like sprinkled into the story at different levels of bleak. Different levels of, yeah. Well, I mean, because it's dark fantasy, or close to dark fantasy. Bleakest moment. You know, I do have these low points. I do try to show these low points, various low points. I actually do, and I don't know. You know, for me, what I do is that there are these levels of low points in my stories. So I have like the sort of, how can I say it? You know, I have no idea how I'm going to say this. I didn't really think this through very much. This is how you can tell that I've never read I don't read these articles beforehand before coming here and recording this. So I have no idea what I'm going to say. Hold on. I need some coffee. Okay, this ought to help. Coffee. Okay, so yeah, I don't think that there is like one singular low point. There are like many levels of low points. So one low point could be, this is an example that's not from any story or anything. This is just something I just came up with. Character gets a detention. That could be a low point. Maybe it hurts their reputation or something. Character gets themselves in such a pickle that they lose all their friends. That is another level of low point. See what I'm saying? So it's not like it happens like just one like downfall and then it's just up from there, you know, to the climax. You sprinkle it throughout, and then it gets worse and worse. And by the time you get to the part where the character loses all their friends and they're alone in the entire school, and it doesn't seem like anyone wants to help them because they've been such a bully, and they regret everything, but they don't know how to fix this. That is like the lowest point, okay? And then it's from there that they're going to climb out of the hole and figure a way out. They're going to find something. Usually it's something like humility. They take accountability or swallow their ego or something. Okay, now I actually have an example now. Okay, I thought of an example. Guys, listen. So I wrote this. I like steampunk imagery. So I thought I tried writing a steampunk story. I haven't really read a lot of steampunk books because by the time it came out, I wasn't really interested in reading fantasy books at that time. So I didn't actually read a lot of fantasy in the steampunk subgenre. I do want to now, but now I don't know what the good ones out there are. So if you could recommend some steampunk books, that would be awesome. Anyway, so I tried my hand at a steampunk novel. I don't know if it became steampunk anyway, in any way. There's this character, okay? The main character. He is very manipulative and charismatic, and he owns a art gallery, and then everything is going so well for him when suddenly an old nemesis from the past comes up and reveals his true identity in front of all his friends. And so now Jack, his name is Jack, he has to escape because now the police are after him, and also his nemesis is after him, and also his best art gallery show has been crashed and ruined, and people have been murdered. So now he has lost a lot of things, but not everything, okay? So that's like the first low point, right? But then there is a low point where his selfish deed ends up losing the people that were becoming important to him. And then he tries to rebuild himself, but ultimately he struggles and fails so hard that he returns to his former friend, to his friends, those who were his friends, those who worked at the art gallery show with him, and they don't want him back. And then through his mistakes again, he does some terrible things to his friends by mistake, but it's through his own, because of his own ego, that this stuff happened. And so now he is all alone and he is broke. He is nobody. No, he doesn't have anybody. He doesn't have any family, doesn't have any friends, and everything that he worked towards is gone. He doesn't know what to do to get out of this predicament. He's never been in such a lowest low in his life. And this is where he has to, what he has to do. He does try again to bounce out of it. But then just the final blow comes directly onto his ego, and he's just flattened and crushed. So this is where the sort of strength of the character has to come through. Like, he has to swallow his ego, admit his mistakes, and, you know, all that good stuff. Anyway, that's my example. So Jerry Jenkins mentions here that the blinkest moment forces your hero to take action, to use every new muscle and technique gained from facing a book full of obstacles to prove that things only appeared beyond repair. Yeah, so Jack does have a lot of other, you know, skills. And he also calls himself the Jack of all trades. So he has all kinds of skills that he picked up over the years. And now he has to figure out exactly what is important to him, what matters to him, and what exactly that he needs to do. Not just in order to get out of his own predicament, but to possibly maybe save the world from an evil enchantress. If you were curious about that story, like, that sounds like an interesting story. Well, thank you. You can find that book on Wattpad. It's called Jack of All Trades. If you want to look for it. I think I might have my Wattpad profile linked in my YouTube channel. I don't know if I do, but you can find me easily. Just type in Jack of All Trades, or you can type in my username, which is the Tiger Writer. So you can find that. You might have wondered right now, why is she a fox and a tiger? Well, that's exactly what I am. Okay, so we're moving on. As I said, I'm reiterating, this is not a step, it's an advice. Okay, so we're moving on to step 11, which is bring it all to a climax. Is this just breaking down the structure of the story? I think it is. This is not a step. It's not a step. Please stop calling it a step. The ultimate resolution, the peak emotional point of your story, comes when your hero faces his toughest test yet. The stakes must be dire and failure catastrophic. It should be, yeah, catastrophic. Yeah, I thought, wait, I'm not reading that word right, or it's misspelled. No, it's spelled fine. The conflict that has been building throughout now crescendos to a final, ultimate confrontation, and all the major book-length setups are paid off. Star Wars: A New Hope climaxes with the rebels forced to destroy the Death Star. In the original version of the movie, that scene felt flat, so the filmmakers added that the Death Star was on the verge of destroying the rebel base. That skyrocketed the tension and sent the stakes over the top. Give readers the payoff they've been set up for. Reward their sticking with you and let them experience the fireworks. But remember, the climax is not the end. The real conclusion ties up loose ends and puts everything into perspective. Okay, so it does. Okay, this is not a step. What he's saying isn't wrong. I mean, the stuff he's saying isn't wrong. It's just not a step. Okay, that's just the thing with this right now. Yeah. So I mean, it's the way of the story, right? It's like when you think about Harry Potter, he's like his ultimate enemy is he who shall not be named Voldemort, and it's by the end of the entire series that he faces off with Voldemort finally, you know, in this ultimate sort of battle. But ultimately it's not Harry Potter, but it's Neville Longbottom and stuff. Yeah, so you built up all this stuff, you go into giving the final big boss battle here. I call the ultimate, you know, boss that the character has to face, whatever it is. I call it the big bad, you know, like the big bad wolf. So they have to face the big bad at the end. I mean, think about it. The three little pigs, okay? The straw house pig runs to the stick house pig. They run to the brick house pig. And finally, in like an ultimate showdown, they face the big bad wolf. And light the chimney on they don't light the chimney on fire. They light the fireplace and they send him crying off for good. And they are saved. The big bad wolf cannot get to them. And so, in a sense, they have defeated the big bad. So, that is the story. That is the story. That is the story of the three little pigs and the big bad wolf. And that is the big bad that they ultimately face off. So, your characters, the build up towards facing the big bad. And then, they don't face the big bad? What? No. You would make them face the big bad. You would make Harry Potter face Voldemort. You would make, what else? Who else? What else is there? No idea. You would make... I'm running a blank with characters. Oh, you would make, in Narnia, you would make the witch, the ice witch, the snow witch, what was her name? You would make the Aslan and her faced off in a battle, wouldn't you? I mean, you've been building up to that point, so you would do that. You would make, who else? Oh, I can talk about my own story, you know. My young adult portal fantasy novel that is coming out this fall. I can say that now. Between Roses. Main character, Erin, a normal girl, stumbles where she's kind of thrown into this chaotic and magical realm, and it's haunted by a monster of madness called the Jabberwocky. And you want her ultimately to face off with the Jabberwocky, right? That's the big bad. Throughout the novel, you see hints and bits of the big bad here and there, but never facing it. And then, she has to face the big bad because she has a power that could destroy it, I'm saying. So you want her to face off the big bad, don't you? I am not going to end the story before she faces the big bad. Anyway, if you want to know more about this standalone fantasy book, you can follow me on Instagram, where I talk about it a lot. I give snippets, and I will soon be starting a Patreon. Anyway, that is a little bit of self-promo there, and we are going back to this article, which is no longer about steps. The last one here is... Now I have my fox girl avatar hugging a book, and there's little hearts. Now, that's because this step 12 is called Leave Readers Wholly Satisfied. Let's read. A great ending honors the reader for his investment of time and money. Is the best of all your options. If it comes down to clever, quirky, or emotional, always aim for the heart. Keeps your hero on stage till the last word. Because climaxes are so dramatic, endings often just peter out. Don't let that happen. Your ending might not be as dramatic or action-filled as the climax, but it must be every bit as provocative and riveting. Don't rush it. Rewrite it until it shines. I've long been on record that all writing is rewriting, and this is never more true than at the end of your novel. When do you know it's been rewritten enough? When you've gone from making it better to merely making it different. Write a fully satisfying ending that drops the curtain with a resounding thud. Your readers will thank you for it. I just read that thank you for it part, and those exact words come up in Between Roses when Aaron's sort of toxic best friend Celeste says, I am going to introduce my boyfriend's friend Andrew to you because you're so single and you should thank me for it. And she says that, and I was just rereading that passage yesterday, and I read that thank you for it part down. I was like, oh my gosh, that is Celeste. That is Celeste. If you want to read about their crazy friendship, you want to check out Between Roses. Well, it's coming out this fall, so anyway. Okay, so he's breaking down the ending. He's giving tips. This is not a step. This is not a step. Up till 6, maybe it was a step, but after that, it's just gone downhill. I am marking this article down to a 2, maybe a 1. Oh, gosh. Yeah. So, I don't know what kind of ending he's talking about here. What kind of story does he have in mind when he's talking about this ending section? You know, because there are different kinds of endings. There's an ending, and they all lived happily ever after type of ending. And there's the ending like, you know, everything is fine. It's not completely resolved, but it's fine. The characters are fine. They are fine. They are healthy. They are happy. Maybe not everything is completely resolved. There's some things that still need to be done, but they're basically fine. And then there are the endings that are just completely devastating, like those horror movies, like those B-movie type horror movies where everyone dies. There's not even a final girl. Everyone dies. And then there's a type of endings that move on, just hinting that there is a sequel to this book. And there are those endings that completely end on a devastating cliffhanger. And you cannot wait to get the sequel. There are so many different endings. There's like many middle grade books end at like the main character going home or reuniting with parents. It's a heartwarming, tear-jerking type of ending. There are some endings. Now, I'm not going to spoil this for you, okay? If you haven't read it. Where the Crawdads Sing by Owens. What Owens was it? Oh gosh. Anyway, you know what book I'm talking about. It's famous. It was made into a movie. So, some books might end on a heartwarming / shocking twist. You would want to read the book to know exactly what I'm talking about, but that was just, oh my mind was blown. Maybe I should do a book review type of video soon of the books that I've read in the past. So anyway, that's all the steps, which half of them were not steps. So this is just talking about the structure. Breaking down the structure of the story is not a step. I keep saying it's not a step because I'm just disappointed that this isn't actually a 12-step guide. He should have talked about, like the previous article, he should have talked about the publishing. He should have talked about publishing. You know, getting your story ready for publishing. That is actually steps, but So he says here that I've long been on record that all writing is rewriting. I don't know, maybe my idea of rewriting, his idea of rewriting are different, but my idea is that a rewrite is like you delete a chapter that you've already written and just rewrite it. I'm not talking about editing little paragraphs here and there. So I don't know if that's what he's talking about. He has something linked to the word rewrite, so maybe I'll look at that later. Maybe. I don't know if your ending has to be every bit as provocative and riveting. It might depend on the story. I don't know. I think the ending has to be satisfying in some way or other. Even if that's not heartstrings are pulled or anything, it can be satisfying. You know, there's different types of satisfaction. Like you've built it up, you've promised the reader this in the beginning, and you're giving them this at the end. And they should feel like this book is just one nice little thing that they gobbled up and they feel satisfied. Was that a good analogy? Gobbling up a book. Devouring a book. You devour it. And it leaves you feeling a certain something way. And if your feeling is a good type of feeling, or even if it's not good, but it's like, ooh, oh my gosh, I'm having some book hangover now. I think that's also satisfying. Yeah. So at the end of his article, he actually has a section, frequently asked questions and novel writing tips. So I thought, that is interesting that he has this at the end. Even though the last few steps were not even steps, it was just writing advice. So I'm pretty sure this video is quite long already, but I want to go into these FAQ NTW section, novel writing tips NTW. See what I did? So, first of all, how long does it take to write a novel? Oh, that is very depending on the person. That would be my answer. Depending on the person. How long? But if you want some kind of... Okay, let me say this. If you are a newbie, you've never written a novel in your entire life and you're just getting started and you want to know how long does it take to write a novel, that is the same thing as saying how long until I can learn how to swim? How long until I can learn how to play the piano? How long will it take me to be able to draw a realistic human? It depends on your drive. It depends on what kind of skills you already have. It depends on if maybe you've written short stories before, if you've written poetry before. You're already the skill set that you already have. So it's a lot of depends. So there's actually nothing I can really say specifically. You would probably, okay, let me tell you about that cringe story that I mentioned. That story that I said would never see the light of day. Do you remember that? I worked on that book for 7 years. On and off. There was an entire year that I didn't write on it at all. I don't know what I was doing that entire year. I don't even remember. I'm pretty sure I was writing, but I wasn't writing that book. But it did take me 7 years to finish. Well, in a sense that I stopped writing it when I realized that it wasn't going to go anywhere. But I was learning how to write during that time as well. So I was writing all kinds of other things too. So that's why it took me 7 years. But some people takes them maybe 3-4 years or something like that. But it's going to take years to finish writing a novel. See, it's really subjective. It really depends on the person. Because let's say you try National Novel Writing Month. You try to write a novel for a month. Then I can say, oh, it takes a month to write a novel. If you can write every day, if you can win, quote unquote, win NaNoWriMo, and get 50K done in a month. Then you say, okay, I wrote a novel in a month. Or you could say, oh, maybe because of my life situation and I'm busy or I'm working or I have kids or whatever, maybe it takes me a year, maybe it takes me 2 years to write a novel. It's really depending on person. What does Jerry Jenkins say? So he says, a lifetime. It will pull from you everything you know and everything you are. It takes as long as necessary. I know those answers sound flippant, but remember, speed is not the point. Quality is the point. Spend as much time as it takes for you to be happy with every word before you start pitching your manuscript to the market. How long writing a novel will take you depends on your goals and your schedule. A manuscript of a 100,000 words, including revision, should be doable, even for a beginner, in 6 to 9 months. Develop and practice the right habits. Set a regular writing schedule and stick to it. Regular writing schedule. Whatever works for you. Manuscript of a 6 to 9 months. Define manuscript, Jerry Jenkins. How of a finished version are you talking about? Are you adding in the editing process, the self-editing process, which is, it's a thing. If you've never done it before, it takes a long time to figure out what you need to do. Or are you talking about just a manuscript, just like the first draft or something? I need to know. So I think it depends on the person. That is what my answer would have been. How hard it is to write a novel. Extremely hard. Challenging. Rewarding and challenging. Maybe that's why I like writing so much. I like being challenged creatively. So it's rewarding and challenging at the same time. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I am having such a severe writer's block right now. But still I like it because then I come out at the end. I'm like, I did it. I have done this. I figured this out. This is awesome. Okay. What does he say? If you're anything like me, it would prove the hardest thing you have ever done. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Every published novelist, yes, even any big name you can think of, was once right where you are, unpublished and unknown. They ultimately succeeded because they didn't quit. Resolve to not quit and you will write a novel. I can't guarantee you will become a bestseller, but I can guarantee it won't if you don't finish it. Well, that's good advice. That's good stuff to say. That's good stuff to say, Jerry Jenkins. Okay. You will, yes. Don't quit. You will write a novel. And if you enjoy it, all the better. Do it for yourself. Do it because you love it. Yes, you will finish it. You will get it done. If you are stubborn and determined as I am, or as Jerry Jenkins is, or as so many other writers are, you will be able to make it happen. It will happen. Because see, I didn't think that I would ever even think about publishing. I was like dreaming, it'd be so nice if I could get published. Someone would pick up my book at the bookstore and be like, oh, I really want to read this book. And then they would read the book and then they will feel happy. And I'm like, that would be such a nice thing to have happen to me. And now it might even happen. It might actually happen. How do I know if my story idea has potential? Oh, wow. I have no idea. Because I have no idea. Okay. Sometimes if it follows some trend, or if it's a genre that a lot of people like, then you know that it has potential. But what if you have something really, really unique and unusual or dark? Like if I have this dark humor, satire, literary fiction-esque duology, I don't know if I'm ever going to publish that. It's on Wattpad if you want to look at it. My username is the Tiger Writer if you didn't catch that earlier. How do I know if my story idea has potential? I don't know if those dark humor satire stories have potential, but I enjoy it. So maybe if I enjoy it, it has potential. Let's see what Jerry Jenkins says. Okay, Jerry Jenkins says, your story has legs. I just imagined a frog with like long, dangly, human-like legs. And the frog is actually has words on its back because it's actually a stacked manuscript. I have coffee in my system right now, okay? It's just such a random. I just thought of such the randomest thing. Okay. Legs. I thought about a frog with legs because there's a beanie baby called Legs, which is a green frog. That's just so random. Okay, I'm moving on. You'll know your story has legs if it stays in your mind, growing and developing every time you think of it. The right concept simply feels right. You'll know it when you land on it. Most importantly, your idea must compel you to write it. Tell your story idea to someone whose opinion you trust. Ooh, I don't know about that. You should be able to tell by their expression and their tone of voice whether they really like it or are just being polite. No, don't tell anybody. I would suggest don't tell anybody and to feel like you are ready to tell people. For me, if I tell a story idea to people, I feel like I don't want to write it for a while. I don't know why. Not always, but if I tell something to somebody, I feel like, my brain feels satisfied. I don't need to write this. When I should write it, I don't know. It's a weird thing with me. So I don't tell people a story idea until I've written at least most of it. So, yeah. But it depends on the story idea, I suppose. If you were a newbie, you wouldn't just simply know. Okay? So just write whatever comes to your mind. Enjoy it. Just enjoy. Experiment. You experiment all kinds of genres. I've tried all kinds of genres. Whether I did them right or wrong, doesn't matter. I just tried all kinds of things. I wrote this show, so I used to do this thing called Almost Everyday Flash Fiction, in which I would write a one-page story about some random thing, anything that comes to mind, and I would try all kinds of genres and all kinds of perspectives and all kinds of tricks and stuff. Because there was this one story where I wrote about, it starts off with a woman reading a book in a bookstore. But then come to find out, it's actually a woman reading a book in a bookstore about a woman reading a book in a bookstore. So I did some kind of layered thing like that. And I also wrote I have a flash fiction short story about two little old ladies in a car driving in the rain, and they're arguing who should take the wheel. And then their car overheats and stops, and so they both have to get out, and they're both laughing now because now it's funny because now they're both wet and they're both now having a good time again. And I also wrote a story about a girl alien who is going to Earth with her father alien, and they are the ones in charge of the crop circles. Do you know about the crop circles? You should look them up. It's pretty weird. And then I have another story. I'm pretty sure I have a story from the perspective of an angel who meets a demon. I have another story about, I have this short story I wrote. It's actually one of my favorite short stories that I've written. It was a sort of nonfiction story experience that I have of looking out at a tide pool at night and how my flashlight was shining out into the dark ocean. That was my first time feeling inspired to actually write something about something that I actually saw. It doesn't happen very often for me because I don't really write nonfiction. But, I tried. Experiment. That's what you gotta do. You gotta experiment all kinds of things, write all kinds of things, and have fun. That's the most important thing, to have fun, okay? I don't know if I would tell somebody. I mean, you can if you want to, but I wouldn't tell anybody until I'm actually really positively 100% ready. So he ends with this nice little thing titled, "You Can Do This." If you want to write a novel, don't allow the magnitude of the writing process to overwhelm you. Attack it in the way you would eat an elephant, one bite at a time. That is a weird thing to imagine, Jerry Jenkins. Don't let fear stop you. Use it as motivation to do your best work. Avoid wondering what if. Take the leap. Stay focused on why you started this journey in the first place. That's good advice, yeah. I would say I would often, when people say, oh, I don't know if my story is worth it, I don't know if I'm going to be a writer, I don't know what to do, do you guys have any advice? And I say, what about if you remember why you started writing in the first place? Is it because you enjoy it? Well then, do you remember that feeling? So maybe you should remember that feeling more and focus on that feeling and remind yourself why you started on this journey in the first place. Sometimes we can get so bogged down with what is currently happening to us. Anyway, moving on. Follow the steps. These are not steps. These are not steps. Please don't do this to me. Follow the steps I've given you, and you may find that this time next year you're holding in your hands a manuscript that could become a published novel with your name on the cover. These are not steps, Jerry Jenkins. These are not steps. I don't know if you would attack a manuscript in the way you would eat an elephant. Maybe in the way you would eat a 6-course meal or something like that. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Okay. Now I remember it was Reedsy that mentioned the terrible trouble. Did they? Okay. So I have on the screen right now 2 articles that I looked at. So the Reedsy team, which was 13 steps. And I thought this would be interesting to compare. And Jerry Jenkins, which is 12 steps. So when you look at it, okay, Reedsy team says step 1, pick a story idea with novel potential. Jerry Jenkins says step 1, nail down a winning story idea. That's about, they both talk about you have to figure out your story idea, right? You have to figure out what your idea is. And then step 2 for Reedsy is develop your characters. Step 2 for Jerry Jenkins is determine whether you're an outliner or a pantser. And I thought, that's interesting. He mentions that because he's probably mostly a pantser. So he knows that he should probably mention that, which is good. Reedsy team has no idea. Okay, moving on is step 3. Reedsy team, establish a central conflict and stakes. Okay, and step 3 is where we get to create an unforgettable main character on Jerry Jenkins' side. Interesting. Step 4 for Reedsy, write a logline. Jerry Jenkins did not talk about loglines or his synopsis. He goes on to say you should expand your idea into a plot. That is in step 5 where Reedsy says structure your plot. Reedsy does not talk about research. Jerry Jenkins talked about research in step 5. In step 6, both of them say pick a point of view. Why is it? Why? Why is step 6 when you choose the point of view? I have no idea. Why is it that writing advice articles say to pick a point of view after you establish your character? I don't understand that. Why wouldn't you pick a point of view when you establish your character? Can somebody tell me why that is? Anyway, so I have this comparison. You could, I don't know, you could stare at this yourself, pause the video. Yes, you can pause the video and stare at this and see, that is interesting how Jerry Jenkins suddenly starts breaking down the story structure after step 7. And Reedsy article is talking about publishing, and those actually do sound kind of like steps. Okay. So the 12-step guide isn't a 12-step guide. It's like a 6 to 7-step guide. And the Reedsy article is like, but it's, I might have brushed my mic again. The Reedsy article is 13 steps. Possibly. 13 steps in kind of odd. I remember the order was kind of odd. Anyway, we have finally come to the end of this video. So, did Jerry B. Jenkins come through? No. Well, from step 1 to 6, maybe 7 is when he came through. Step 7? What was step 7? Okay, so, that is a blank screen. That is a blank screen. So, I will end this video here. Yeah, so, I don't know how to go back. Pretty sure if you're going to see my slides, and I cannot show you my slides because they're whole messy. Wait, actually. Okay, I can go back. Whew. Okay, so I just wanted to go back. Okay, what was I gonna do? Jerry B. Jenkins, did he come through? Did he come through? Okay, I wanted to show you this, step 1 through 6, yes, he came through. Step 7 to 12, no, that's just breaking down the story structure. Compare that to Reedsy. I think the Reedsy article was more about steps. Jerry Jenkins' article, not much about steps. He didn't have to make 12 steps. He didn't have to. He could have stopped at 6. That is my opinion, my personal opinion. Let me know what you think. This video is incredibly long. I am positively sure because I do not edit my videos. But you already know that. So, that is it. Please, like button, subscribe button, comment. Please, it helps with the algorithm. Apparently, if you don't know what to comment, just say not steps. Just comment, just say not steps. And that is the end of the video. And I will see you. No, actually, I won't see you. That's weird. You will hear me in the next video. And the fox is out.